Chapter 12 of the Defiant Agents. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by R.J. Davis. The Defiant Agents by Andre Norton. Chapter 12. Travis had taken a direct cross route through the heights, but not swiftly enough to reach his objective before nightfall, and he had no wish to enter the Tower Valley by moonlight. In him two emotions now warred. There was the urge to invade the towers, to discover their secret, and flaring higher and higher, the beginnings of a new fear. Was he now a battlefield for the superstitions of his race reborn by the reed axe, and his modern education in the Pindaliculi world, half Apache brave of the past, half modern archaeologist with a thirst for knowledge? Or was the fear rooted more deeply and for another reason? Travis crouched in a hollow, trying to understand what he felt. Why was it suddenly so overwhelmingly important for him to investigate the towers? If he only had the coyotes with him, why and where they had gone. He was alive to every noise out of the night, every scent the wind carried to him. The night had its own life, just as the daylight hours held theirs. Only a few of those sounds could he identify. Even less did he see. There was one wide-winged, huge flying thing which passed across the green-gold plate of the nearer moon. It was so large that for an instant Travis believed the helicopter had come. Then the wings flapped, breaking the glide, and the creature merged in the shadows of the night. A hunter large enough to be a serious threat, and one he had never seen before. Relying on his own small defense, the stewing of brittle sticks around the only approach to the hollow, Travis dozed at intervals, his head down on his forearm across his bent knees. But the cold cramped him, and he was glad to see the graying sky of pre-dawn. He swallowed 2 ration tablets and a couple of mouthfuls of water from his canteen and started on. By sunup he had reached the ledge of the waterfall, and he hurried along the ancient road at a pace which increased to a run the closer he drew to the valley. Deliberately he slowed, his native caution now in control, so that he was walking as he passed through the gateway into the swirling mist which alternately exposed and veiled the towers. There was no change in the scene from the time he had come here with Kaydessa, but now rising from a comfortable sprawl on the yellow and green pavement was a welcoming committee. Nalik'ideyu and Naginlta showing no more excitement at his coming than if they had parted only moments before. Travis went down on one knee, holding out his hand to the female, who had always been the more friendly. She advanced a step or two, touched a cold nose to his knuckles, and whined. Why? He voiced that one word, but behind it was a long list of questions. Why had they left him? Why were they here where there was no hunting? Why did they meet him now as if they had calmly expected his return? Travis glanced from the animals to the towers, those windows set in diamond pattern, and again he was visited by the impression that he was under observation. With the mist floating across those openings, it would be easy for a lurker to watch him unseen. He walked slowly on into the valley, his moccasins making no sound on the pavement, but he could hear the faint click of the coyotes' claws as they paced beside him on each hand. The sun did not penetrate here, making merely a gilt fog of the mist. As he approached within twisting distance of the first tower, it seemed to Travis that the mist was curling about him. He could no longer see the archway through which he had entered the valley. Naninjane, slayer of monsters, give strength to the bow arm, to the knife wrist. Out of what long buried memory did that ancient plea come? Travis was hardly aware of the sense of the words until he spoke them aloud. You who wait, Cheyenne day to da Ishan. An Apache is not food for you. I am Fox of the Itkatskudindayu, the Eagle People, and beside me walk Gaians of Power." Travis blinked and shook his head as one waking. Why had he spoken so, using words and phrases which were not part of any modern speech? He moved on, around the base of the first tower, to find no door, no break in its surface below the second-story windows. To the next structure and the next until he had encircled all three. If he were to enter any, he must find a way of reaching the lowest windows. On he went to the other opening of the valley, the one which gave upon the territory of the Tatar camp. But he did not sight any of the Mongols as he hacked down a sapling, trimmed, and smoothed it into a blunt pointed lance. His sash belt, torn into even strips and knotted together, gave him a rope which he judged would be barely long enough for his purpose. Then Travis made a chancy cast for the lower window of the nearest tower. On the second try the lance slipped in, and he gave a quick jerk, jamming the lance as a bar across the opening. It was a frail ladder, but the best he could improvise. He climbed until the sill of the window was within reach, and he could pull himself up and over. The sill was a wide one, at least a 24-inch span between the inner and outer surface of the tower. Travis sat there for a minute, reluctant to enter. Near the end of his dangling scarf rope, the two coyotes lay on the pavement, their heads up, their tongues lolling from their mouths, their expression ones of detached interest. Perhaps it was the width of the outer wall that subdued the amount of light in the room. The chamber was circular, and directly opposite him was a second window, the lowest of the matching diamond pattern. He took the 4-foot drop from the sill to the floor, but lingered in the light as he surveyed every inch of the room. There were no furnishings at all, but in the very center sank a well of darkness. A smooth pillar, glowing faintly, rose from its core. Travis's adjusting eyes noted how the light came in small ripples, green and purple, over a fountain shade of dark blue. The pillar seemed rooted below, and it extended up through a similar opening in the ceiling, save for climbing from window to window outside. Travis moved slowly to the well. Underfoot was a smooth surface overlaid with a velvet carpet of dust, which arose in languid puffs as he walked. Here and there he sighted prints in the dust, strange triangular wedges which he thought might possibly have been made by the claws of birds. But there were no other footprints. This tower had been undisturbed for a long, long time. He came to the well and looked down. There was dark there, dark in which the pulsations of light from the pillar shone the stronger. But that glow did not extend beyond the edge of the well, through which the thick rod threaded. Even by close examination he could detect no break in the smooth surface of the pillar, nothing remotely resembling hand or foothold. If it did serve the purpose of a staircase, there were no threads. At last Travis put out his hand to touch the surface of the pillar, and then he jerked back. To no effect. There was no breaking contact between his fingers and an unknown material which had the sleekness of polished metal, but, and the thought made him slightly queasy, the warmth and very slight give of flesh. He summoned all his strength to pull free and could not. Not only did that hold grip him, but his other hand and arm were being drawn to join the first. Inside Travis, primitive fears awoke full force, and he threw back his head, voicing a cry of panic as wild as that of a hunting beast. An instant later his left palm was as tight a prisoner as his right, and with both hands so held, his whole body was suddenly snapped forward, off the safe foundation of the floor, tight to the pillar. In this position he was sucked down into the well, and while unable to free himself from the pillar, he did slip along its length easily enough. Travis shut his eyes in an involuntary protest against this weird form of capture, and a shiver ran through his body as he continued to descend. After the first shock had subsided, the Apache realized that he was not